Hello guys, so this is a part 2 to the making of the jacket or suit. If you haven't watched the part 1, that's the cutting of the patterns, please do it to check it out. So here, this is the back pattern because I've labeled the CB center back, SB side back, and added our sewing allowances at the part 1. And this is the front part of the jacket, and my pattern, my paper, my fabric is already folded into two. I'm using a white fabric for the jacket, as you saw in the beginning of the making of this, and that's the part 1. So here I'm going to be pinning my pattern. Just pin them and mark out your allowances. So here I've marked out my allowances, and for this I'm going to be cutting out this the lapel. I'm using a different fabric for it, so just watch and you see I'm going to do that. And for this I'm going to add in a vent to the center or the front. That's why I added that extra allowances to the side, like to princess that side. I should have added the same allowance. I added 1.5 inches allowances to that ending part of the front. So I've added it also to the other cutout, but I use half inches for it. You can do that, or you can still leave it as half inches on the two sides, adding the extra 1.5 inches self, and it still come out well. Let's say I'm going to be sewing it at the right time. We continue with our cutting out the fabric using the inches seam allowance that we added. So I'm going to be doing the same thing for the front and the back. Just as I'm cutting the front using the allowance, I'm going to also place my fabric for the back, use my pin to pull it down and add my allowances and cut it out just as well. I didn't video this cutting out for the back. So here is the back fabric. Go over to the sewing. So I'm going to be sewing them together by the side. Remember, what we added there is half inches, so I'm going to sew it at that half inches. And this is what I have after sewing. You can see I sewed it using the half inches, 0.5 inches we added at the center back, and also at the princess dart lines for the back. So going to sew it as well, sew in by half an inch, and this is what it's looking like. And I'm going to be opening up my seam allowance and giving it a good press. This is very important. So open up your allowance and press it neatly front and back to make it lay very flat and neat. And this is the lining. I also sewed the lining as well, just as I sewed the main fabric, and I'm pressing them down as well. So do your pressing, any pressing, and this determines how neat your suit is going to come out. It's just the beauty of your clothing is in the pressing. So this is our center front, and that is, you're moving over to the front part of the jacket or suit. This is our side front, and this is our center front. I've cut them, the lining and the main fabric, and because I want to be turning my lapel with a different type of fabric, I cut out my lining halfway. Like, I did not join the lapel to the cutting out of my white plain lining. You're going to see that in a jiffy. And for that lapel part, you can see how that the front is. the lapel side. I did not add to the lapel, and this is what I have. This is the lapel there. So I cut a different fabric for the lapel. That means I added half inches to the cutting of the lining. I added half inches and I drew a straight line. After I've trimmed out the lapel line that we had earlier on the pattern, after cutting it out, I added half inches to it before cutting it. I can see the lapel. I added half inches to the fabric and also to the lining. I added half inches as well, and then I'm going to be joining them the piece together. So using half inches, I'm going to be joining that designed fabric that we have there. That's the same thing. I'm not going to explain it in details there. So I'm going to be joining it half by half inches to the lining, so that after sewing it and I open my lapel, that fabric is going to be showing to give it a different kind of design. You get. So I'm going to sew that. So we'll be starting off with our main fabric. So here I'm going to be, I opened up the main fabric. This is the one part, that's the front part of the fabric. Open it up, you can see the lapel. Just use something and indicate the right side and the wrong side of the fabric so not to misplace them. That not at the end you have the pieces looking the same way, like facing the same way, and you end up losing them. So I'm going to be sewing by half of an inch the center front and the side front. Now I added 1.5 inches to one side and half inches to the other side. So I'm trying to make sure that the 1 inch is out from the one half inch and joining them together. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. You're going to see what I have. And to this, I'm going to be ironing them as well. So over to the lining. So I'm going to be attaching the pieces I cut out, like the lapel design that I cut out. I'm going to be sewing it in by half of an inch before joining the center front to the side front. That's the princess that as I did for the main fabric. So this is my lapel. So it's a different design. I'm going to be sewing them right side facing each other, and I'm going to be opening them up. So this is what we have after joining the whole piece together. That's the lapel to the fabric, and then the side front and the center front together. And then I'm going to be giving that a good press. So I've pressed them down, and here I'm joining the side to the main fabric. I'm joining the linings differently and the main fabric different by the side. We added 1.5 inches for our sewing allowance. So I sewed, that is here I've already joined the side front to the side back on two sides, sewing the lining and the main fabric differently. You can do this if you want to achieve a 360-degree finishing. That's the sewing seam allowance is not going to be showing inside, it's going to be concealed. But if you are doing this, make sure that your side, as your center back, you give a little opening there. That's why you're going to be turning the whole thing inside out. But at the end, I ended up losing this thing. I ended up losing the seam allowances by the side, and I joined it differently. Like mine had sewing allowance showing inside. I didn't do the 360-degree finishing. This is just a tip for you if you want to do 360-degree finishing. So yeah, after joining the lining to the main fabric, you're going to be cutting out half an inches away from the lining, because we added 1 inches to the hemming to the full length for turning the main fabric, like giving it a good pull. Then also I'm cutting out the half inches, after which I'm going to be sewing them together by half of an inch and ironing them. You know that knee finishing is gift below. That's what I'm saying, right? If you're not understanding anything or any part of this video, please do well to leave a comment. Ask your question in the comment section. I'll be there to answer you as I can. Yeah, so that is it. So here I joined the main fabric to the lining and I'm sewing them together by half of an inch. So here I'm going to be adding that vent that I told you about. So I'm using this fabric that I use for the collar or lapel for the vent. So this is what I'm going to be using, and I've already cut it out. So this is giving us, this is 6.5 inches on fold. That's what we have. And then I'm going to measure where I want it to be. It's going to be starting from there. So I'm going to measure it out. So I'm going to be sewing it. So opening up the vent material, what I'm going to use for the vent, I'm going to be sewing them, making sure the right side be facing outwards, just as I'm doing it in this video. So I'm going to be sewing them in by that seam allowances. You know, I added half of an inch to the one side and I added 1.5 inches to the other side. So I'm going to make use of those inches in sewing them. To the half inches, I'm going to sew them by half of an inch, and to the other one, I'm going to be also sewing it at the sewing allowances, and that is it. So I'm going to be folding in the hem of the vent material. So we're going to be sewing this together. No, the crease line of the 1.5 inches we added on one side and the half inches we added on the other side. You know, when we ironed it out, we had a crease line there. So that crease line, I'm going to be placing them together, and then I'm going to be running a stitch. That's my permanent stitch, so there's no need for top stitching it. So I'm using my pin to make sure I get that crease line, like the crease line of the half inches and crease line of 1.5 inches. Make sure that they're together. I'm going to pin them down and I'm going to run in a stitch. Just run a stitch on top. That stitch is going to be loosed after, so make sure it's not tight. So from that crease line, I'm going to be measuring out to 2 inches interval. I want it to have like 6 pleats all together. So I'm going to be measuring out. So divide what you have there into 3. So I marked my first measurements. So just divide it into 3. So I'm using 2 inches, and to that I'm going to be stitching it down. All these stitches are temporal, so make sure it's not tacked. Don't tag it while starting up the stitch. So just sew it straight, and after which you're going to loosen it afterward. This is to help you in making the vent, and you're going to also be ironing this out. So just what I'm going to be doing this. So this is what we have after sewing it. This is the last stitch. This is what we have. So I'm going to be heading over to my pressing table to press it out. So see what I'm trying to create. So you're going to make sure that you fold it like this and make sure that your stitch is now at the middle. So it's like you're opening up the what you sewed, you get. So you're trying to open it up. Just, I think this video is well explained. So just try open it up and then give it a press. We're going to do the same thing for the remaining two stitch that we also ran. So open it up, give it a stitch, make sure that it's like you're trying to create the pleat you're seeing. So it's like you're trying to create that pleat, that vent pleat, and to the second one as well. Open it up as shown. Yeah, you can see the stitches that we ran are now falling in the middle, and to that we're going to be pressing them out. You can use this method to make your vents even for a skirt or whatever where you're making that requires a vent. So this is how to go about it. Easy peasy, right? Please, if you have watched up to this point, do well to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, join the community. I drop the videos every week, detailed videos, sometimes two a week depending. So we have weekly upload, and we're creating a community of fashion learners who are passionate about their work and want to improve. Let's grow together. See you guys at the top. So this is how it's looking after ironing them. So that's the pleats we created over there, and then we're going to be sewing them together. So we're going to be sewing this, following the inches. No, we added half inches to this side and 1.5 inches to that side. So I'm going to be picking up the seam allowance and be sewing this on the seam allowances. So sew from one end, stop at the middle, and then you're going to turn it over to the other side, picking out the other side is 1.5 inches the other to the other side, and then you're going to continue the stitch on the other side by that, sewing allowances at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So I just, yes, you're running this stitch on the allowances, so it's not showing outward. Like when I flip to the right side of the jacket, no stitch is going to be showing. You get what I'm saying, right? So after sewing them, I'm going to be losing out the three stitches I ran. That stitch that we ran to help us give it a crease line while ironing them. So I'm going to be losing them all out, and this is what we have. So you see how it's looking. That's our vent. So now I'm going to complete the turning up of my hemline and also at the side. So take the vent inside, pick up your allowance, and then you're going to be sewing the lining and the major fabric just to take this rough edge inside. You get? So I'm going to give you that stitch. That's half of an inch, and this is what we have after sewing it on the two sides. I did the same thing on the other side as well. And you can see the rough edge, we are now inside, and this is our vent. There's no stitch showing in front, but if you want, you can give it a tag there if you want, but I didn't. So over to the right side, we are going to be turning up the main fabric and the line. You know, I told you initially that I later lose my side stitch. I did not do the 360-degree finishing. I weaved it later on. So here I'm going to be sewing the hem after cutting out half of an inch from the lining. You know, you saw how the other side of the front was, like after I've hemmed it. see that little push I was talking about, that little lifting that's pushing the lining inwards, and a little bit of the main fabric joining at the wrong side of the fabric. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get. I did the same thing for this other side of the front. So here I'm picking up this half of an inch inwards. Like I'm picking it up like the extra half of an inch to give it that same push that we are trying to achieve. And this is the center front of the bag, and I'm going to be sewing it down, like turning it by half of an inch. I'm going to be sewing it by half of an inch from that little picking I did. You get what I'm saying, right? So from that little half of an inch that I picked up. So to make this easier for you, before after you have cut out your fabric, make sure you notch where the hem is going to start to get. Just give it that notch. So while sewing, you're going to see that notch, you're going to just pick it up by that notch and continue your sewing. That's it. That's the tip. So after sewing it, I'm going to be opening it up as you saw. So I'm pushing the extra half of an inches to the lining, and I'm giving it a stop stitch. This is very important. Push your seam allowance to the hem and give it a top stitch. And I'm doing the same thing for the lapel. This to make sure that the lining doesn't show. Like after you have pressed it, like you wore your clothes and the lining is popping its neck outward. So the collar extension is going to be going to the back neckline. They're going to attach to the back neckline. You're going to be joining that extension by the neck region by by half of an inches that we added, and we are sewing this main fabric to main fabric, lining to lining. So you're joining the two tip of the lining together and join the two tip of the main fabric together. Get what I'm saying? So after joining that together, you're going to be sewing the lining to the back neckline, lining of the back neckline, and the main fabric to the main fabric of the back neckline. You get? So main fabric to main fabric here, lining to lining. And this is what we have after sewing that together. You see the neck, the join is not showing, and we gave it a good press. And to this, I later added attached my sleeve and placed my buttonhole, and that was it. And I joined the sides together. So after attaching your collar, just as I said, neck lining to lining, main fabric to main fabric, I joined my sleeve. If you want to see how I cut the sleeve, give me a comment in the comment section. I want to make a video. Let me know if you want to see how to cut the sleeve in the comment section. This is our bag. Bye.